Okay, so okay. This is a nightmare I may not be ready to live through.
I started getting crushes on boys.
Real embarrassed about this.
My mouth gets the best of me pretty much all the time.
Okay, I'm just like, okay. All right.
There we go. Hey everybody, you're listening to We Still Like You, the embarrassing storytelling show where we challenge performers to conquer their shame by reliving their most embarrassing moments. I'm Jesse Batend. Now, if you've listened to this show before, you know we usually have a theme or a topic that pulls all of our stories together. A few weeks ago, we did an episode about school. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I highly recommend going back and checking it out. We had a lot of really fun stories on that episode. But in the process of putting that episode together, we realized that we actually had a whole bunch of great school-based stories, too much to even fit into one episode. So, this week, we're doing it again, graduating, if you will, to a higher level of school-based shame.
So I was talking to my friends about the worst thing we've ever done in prep for this. And I was thinking about the worst thing I've ever done, and I thought of the time I got a kid kicked out of the country of Spain because I framed him for vandalism, which is not the usual answer to that question.
To start things off, we have a story of revenge. It comes to you from Ethan Stanislawski, a comedian and writer for Splitsider magazine. Like most of us, Ethan was bullied in school. Until one night in Salamanca, Spain, when he got a chance to settle the score. From Chicago, here's Ethan Stanislawski.
I live in LA now. I grew up in New York. I grew up in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, which has a reputation of being a very intellectual, enlightened place. But I grew up there in the 90s. And at that point, it was just full of prep school sociopath. Like when I saw Joffrey in Game of Thrones, my first thought was, I went to Hebrew school with that kid. Cool. I know that kid very well. And I went to a public high school. I grew up with them, and I sort of went to a public school, so I got away from them. And then the summer between my sophomore and junior year of high school, I did a program to learn Spanish in Salamanca, Spain. And it's a cool place. But I got to the airport and saw the people I was in this program with, and it's like, oh, it's the same fucking monsters I went to elementary and middle school with. I hate this. Also, I was like accidentally straight edge in high school. That makes sense. Like I didn't know what straight edge was, but I had that same asshole rant that every 15-year-old straight edge kid has. Like, why do you need drugs and alcohol to destroy yourself like that? I don't need drugs to have a good time. I'm gonna do my own thing. And then someone explained to me on the way there what straight edge was and how I was that, and it's a whole punk movement. And I'm like, well, fuck that. I don't need to do that. I'm going to do my own thing. I need part of a movement. So basically, I didn't have friends in high school. That's the point of that. And we got there, and so it was a beautiful city, and like we had the night to sort of explore the city. But what all these assholes would do is they would just go to the one American bar in town and just drink themselves to death and just fuck each other in a way that I thought was inappropriate when I was 15. Now it's like whatever. But what I would do instead, because I was so sick of these guys, is I would go to the dorm room where I was staying alone and angrily read plays like that. Like, I don't know if the psychology of that makes sense to you. Like, fuck you, I'm waiting for Godot. But that's what I was at 16. And it's pretty clear early on I didn't like them, pretty clear they didn't like me. And like after a week of this, like every night they would just come back and like bang on the door of my dorm room being like, hey, Ethan, fuck you. And like every night I was just like, I'm reading A Man for All Seasons here. Leave me alone. I don't want to have to deal with you. But every night it's like, Ethan, fuck you. You suck, Ethan. And I'm like, I'm just reading my book of Harold Pinter plays. Like, I don't even like Harold Pinter, but it's better than dealing with you fucking people. Leave me alone. And every night it was like, hey, Ethan. And like one night I just snapped. Like I lost it. Like, fuck it. I fucking hate Salamanca, Spain. I fucking hate these people. Fucking kill me. I want to be out of here. And in like a moment of craziness, I just went out. We had these like old timey like hostile keys. And I carved the words kill me onto the door in pure rage. Because I don't need drugs to have a good time, right? I can just do my own thing. Have fun. So, I woke up the next day in like a rage hangover, like, and I realized, holy shit, I did that last night, didn't I? And then my first thought after that was, I'm not taking the fall for this at all. So I went to the RA of the program And I said to him, hey, I don't want to cause a scene, but someone carved the words "kill me" into my door last night, which is not technically a lie. Like, I am someone. Someone did carve the words "kill me" into the door, and without missing a beat, the guy just looked at me and was like, I know who did this, and he just ran off. And they ended up pegging it on, the guy they pegged it on was like the main asshole of all the bullies in this room. He'd been bullying me, he'd been bullying a lot of people, he'd done a lot of shit this time, and they pegged it on him, and he got kicked out of the program. And when you're 16 and you're kicked out of a program in a country that's not yours, you get kicked out of the country, pretty much. And not only that, I just remember this recently, like, they tore the door down and had to put, like, the new door up because it was so vandalized, and they made his family pay to replace the door. And I kind of felt cool about it. That's the thing, I kind of felt great about it. You know, like, I didn't shoot up a school, but this was my bully revenge. Like, in the way, this was like my mini Columbine in like a weird way. I saw this guy once more right before he left. He was wearing like a button-up shirt and a tie because he'd been in like a disciplinary thing. He was looking very like shaken, very serious, like not the same like douchebag demeanor he had before. And he sort of came up to me, like went out of his way to come up to me. He was like, Ethan, listen, I know I was an asshole to you. I've been an asshole this whole summer, but I just want you to know I didn't do that. I didn't carve the words "kill me" into your door. I swear to you, I didn't. I don't know who did it, but it wasn't me. And outside was like, yeah, whatever. But inside I'm like, I know. You didn't do that. I wish I could say I regret it. I know this show's supposed to be a real, but fuck that guy. I would do it again if I had that chance. But yeah, Eric Kaplan from Newton, Massachusetts, if they're out there listening to this podcast, I'm sorry. And I hope you still got into college at the end of that. There you go. Thank you guys very much.
Ethan Stanislawski. Coming up next, Tim Barnes stands up to the biggest bully of all, his high school gym coach. When I was in high school, the only thing that appealed to me about college was the fact that you got to set your own schedule. You know, pick the things that you want to study, and more importantly, the things that you didn't. We all have that class that we can't stand, right? A subject that's just a little too challenging, makes you feel all your inadequacies every time you walk into that room. For our next performer, that class was gym. From Chicago, comedian, writer for Vice, and host of the It's All True podcast, Tim Barnes tells this story about finally deciding enough is enough.
Thank Tyler for setting up this mic stand for me. I always hated PE my whole life. I never enjoyed it. Even when I was a skinny, like, scrawny kid with all the energy in the world, I hated it. Because I just didn't get why I had to... I just didn't get what we were doing. Like, why couldn't we just run on a treadmill for, an hour or something? Like, why couldn't I take PE theory? And my whole life, I knew that senior year of high school, at least in California where I'm from, you don't have to take PE. That's something that I knew was a fact. I couldn't wait for that year. I waited my whole life for this year, okay? So after years of going through PE classes, pretending to, try to catch the ball, all you have to do is pretend like you're trying and you'd pass, I got to senior year, and I looked at my schedule, and mind you, the year before senior year, that summer, I just threw all of my PE clothes away because I knew that I wasn't taking PE ever again. That part of my life had changed, And then I see that I have PE first period my senior year of high school. I think the real reason I hated PE was because there was a particular summer in elementary school where I spent the whole summer at my grandma's house, and she would make a whole pan of biscuits, and I'd eat the whole pan, So I gained a lot of weight that summer. came back and things were like, I didn't like the way my thighs rubbed against each other. I didn't like how more well-developed my breasts were from all the other boys. I just didn't like it for a lot of reasons. I remember I had a crush on one of these girls in the high school, and we were in the same PE class. And so like, it was like her and one of her friends, and the girl had a crush on, she was talking to one of her friends. Her friend looked at me, turned to her friend, and said, "Hey, is it true that fat people have small dicks?" I mean, you never know if you inspire a thought, but I felt like I inspired that, you know. All right. So, senior year rolls around. I'm furious. I go to my guidance counselor's office, and I think she was like used to people going up to and like having real like actual issues. My only issue was that, you know, I have waited my entire life for this moment, and you ruined it. You know, I'm not taking PE. I'm not taking PE this year. She basically said, you know, you're just gonna have to man up and deal with it. I told my parents about it. They didn't care, and I felt, you know. I mean, it's embarrassing how silly this is, I think. So I knew that I'd have to do some political maneuvering to get the justice that I deserved. I remember being in the like first couple weeks of the PE class, and they're like going all of their like ridiculous concepts of like, why would there be a syllabus for this class, you know? And there's this particular day that they keep hammering in which you need to wear your PE clothes. And I threw away those PE clothes, and I'm not gonna buy more of them. So, and I had the worst teacher that I could possibly. I had the head of the football coach or whatever. And when you're a large black man in a high school, you're like the #1 target for the football. Like they really want you on the football team. But I was like, no, I gotta go home and think about Lord of the Rings, you know. Because I don't know if you know this, but it began with the forging of the great rings, okay? 3 were given to the elves, immortal, wisest and fairest of all beings. 7 to the dwarf lords, great miners and craftsmen of the mountain halls. And 9 rings were gifted to the race of men, who above all else desire power. For within these rings was bound the strength and will to govern each race. But they were all of them deceived. In the land of Mordor, in the fires of Mount Doom, the Dark Lord Sauron forged in secret a master ring to control all others, and he poured into it his cruelty, his malice, and his will to dominate all life. One ring to rule them all. One by one, the remaining lands of Middle-earth fell to the power of the ring. But there were some, all right. So this day rolls along in which everyone is supposed to wear their PE clothes, okay? Everyone in the class is sitting Indian style, quote unquote Indian style, on the pavement of outside. I don't remember how this stuff works. Everyone's wearing their PE clothes except for me, okay? Coach Harris, he was the PE teacher, says anybody who's not wearing their PE clothes today is going to have to run a lap. I was the person not wearing the PE clothes. And so I stood up, and I really felt like this was my Rosa Parks moment. Every black man has their Rosa Parks moment. This was mine. And I said, no, I am not going to run a lap. And so he did what any great dictator would do. And he said, all right, if you won't run the lap, this whole class is going to have to run 2 laps. I did not see a downside in this. I don't know what I'm not running. I'm sticking with that. And so he took it one step further, and he called my mother on the phone, and explained the situation to her, which she was probably at work. It sounded so ridiculous to her. And he knows, I'm black, so I'm probably going to get a big corporal punishment, but me and my parents were over that phase. We had a discussion, made a bipartisan agreement. But he hands the phone back to me, and my mom's just like, could you just run the mile? And I was just like, no, mother. This is bigger than me, and it's bigger than you. I don't know. Long story short, I get driven on like a golf cart thing from one of the, who are those security people? I don't know, like a golf cart thing. I don't remember what it was. To my guidance counselor's office. And it really was like one of those spaghetti westerns. It was like the look on her face was priceless. And long story short, I did not have to take PE that year. That is my story.
Tim Barnes. Make sure to check out Tim's podcast, It's All True. You can find it wherever you found this one. Coming up next, J. Michael Osborne gets a sudden stroke of inspiration.
All right, let's get this started. It's time to light the lights.
Welcome back to We Still Like You. So far, we've heard 2 stories on this episode from high schoolers who are about to graduate. And for most people, the end of high school is the first time that you get to really reinvent yourself. For We Still Like You producer J. Michael Osborne, college was his chance to finally become what he always knew he was, a sleep-deprived, Ambien-soaked creative writing major. From Chicago, comedian and We Still Like You producer, J. Michael Osborne.
I've had problems with insomnia for 10, 11, 12, 13 years. It's been a part of my life for a long time, so I've tried various ways to self-medicate in that time. Some of those have worked better than others. Right now I'm just drinking until I fall asleep. Not healthy, but it works. The most effective I've had was for a time in college when I was prescribed Ambien. Or I should say it was effective until like 3 days in when I started to abuse it immediately. You might know this, you probably know this. If you stay up for a little, if you fight through the sleepiness, then it's amazing. It's like you're just floating in a swimming pool of synthesizer songs. It's so good. And you might have also heard that sex is amazing on it. I've heard that too. If you're me in my sophomore year of college, violently masturbating on Ambien is still all right. Still okay. So I started off small. I started off 1 pill a night. Pretty soon I was up to 2 pills. About a month or 2 in, I was up to 3 pills a night, which isn't good. And then I started drinking on it too, which is, I don't know if you know this, it's kind of a no-no to do that. So every night I would have a beer and I would take 3 Ambien. I would look at Facebook until the pictures started to look like a 3D diorama. As was established, I would violently masturbate. And then I would chain smoke on my porch. It was great. I would just look at the smoke like my rat sensei would appear in it. So that would be my nightly routine. One of those nights, I was a couple beers deep and 3 Ambien deep, And my downstairs neighbor, this was a 2-story place, I was on my balcony. My downstairs neighbor, who, for the sake of the podcast, let's just call him Steven. But Steven came out and he invited me down to a small party he was having. And you may have noticed by now I have some impulse control problems. So I said yes, and I went down there, had a few more beers, and like the southern gentleman I am, I obliged every bowl of weed that was passed to me. So I was, point being, I was as high as anyone's ever been, right? As high as anyone's ever been. And it was then that I had an idea, okay? The greatest idea anyone's ever had. For some context, I was a creative writing major. And boy, oh boy, was I like every creative writing major you had ever met in college. Oh, just the best. I wrote a story, I made everyone in my fiction workshop read a 20-page story about a guy who hallucinated a world where everyone spoke in Beatles lyrics. I wasn't fucking around. So at this point, I genuinely felt like, you know that scene in Garden State, which was still cool to like at the time. It's 2008. You know the scene where Zach Braff is sitting on the couch and the whole party is moving in time lapse around him. I felt like I was in a different dimension than anyone else around me, and I had the greatest idea. So I knew that this was gonna be the novel, the screenplay, whatever, I'm not sure, that made me into the next Kurt Vonnegut, but with the money of Dan Brown. I knew this was gonna be the one. So I grabbed the nearest sheet of paper, I flipped it over, I started writing. And boy, this was the greatest. Okay, just for a synopsis, greatest elevator pitch of the century. What if Jesus of Nazareth did his whole deal in the 21st century? Whoa! I'm a goddamn genius. So Jesus, he's an American now, boy, and he starts doing his thing, and the religious right over at Fox News don't like the cut of this Jesus guy's job, the cut of his jib because political commentary, right? And then he spreads over social media because it's 2008 and I'm a genius, and it's a grassroots campaign of young dreamers because Obama, again, 2008, and maybe Judas Iscariot is a big-time Hollywood actor, or Karl Rove. I'll get back to that. And by the way, Jesus is a black woman because I'm the greatest writer alive. So that goes on for a while. Eventually, the whole page is full of this barely legible handwriting. And I'm trying to explain to everyone around me what a smart and satirical person I am. And the guy who invited me to his house, Steven, he stares at the paper for a little bit. And he looks up at me, and I'm expecting him to say, wow, at some point, I'm going to say, I knew the dude that did that Jesus book. And he says, what paper did you use to do that on? And I flipped it back over. And it was kind of this black and white newspaper clipping of this old guy in front of this charitable organization that he's cutting the ribbon on. And that turned out to be the last living photograph of his dead father. And it was the only copy he or his family had. So I felt pretty bad about that. I apologize profusely, but the worst thing about all of this, I only realized while I was trying to piece together the elements of this, that I was so in love with that bullshit, pompous, fucking piece of shit idea that I took that with me and never gave it back. Yeah, this is the part where you tell me you still like me.
And that does it for this episode of We Still Like You. Thank you, as always, for listening and sharing the show. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more stories of shame. Even J. Michael, although he did get a little uptight when I asked him how that creative writing degree worked out.
Damn, dude, I'm doing my fucking thing. I wrote this whole fucking story, dude. Yo, why don't you read it in print? Fucking asshole. Look at this head of hair. You're bald.
I'm Jesse Batend. Thanks again for listening.
We Still Like You is produced by Dan Sheehan, Danny Gallegos, Tyler Snodgrass, Shannon Knoll, and J. Michael Osborne, who is also our resident live artist. In Los Angeles, it is produced by Andy Sell.
The podcast is produced by Jesse Patend, engineered by Jesse Patend and Sam Haas. Our theme song is Specific People by Jake Tobin. Big thanks to all the people who've housed our live shows at various undisclosed locations around Chicago, and to you, the listener, for being there.
If you'd like to know more about where you can watch We Still Like You or submit to be on We Still Like You, please check out our website, which is westilllikeyou.com, and also you can find us on Facebook.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
By reliving their most embarrassing moments. Their most embarrassing moments. Embarrassing moments.